Welcome to the 49ers Great Debate, the only debate worth watching today. I heard there's another one on, but this is the one that you really want to be paying attention to. All the critical issues. I got Brother Bob here and Rob Stats Guerrero. We're going to be debating 5 subjects. Let me run this 17-second intro. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
Back to throw Montana. Steps up, throws. The 49ers have won the Super Bowl.
And now your host, Ryan Hensley.
Now your host, Ryan Hensley.
All right, 49er fans, we got a treat for you today. This is the first time I've ever seen this take place. We're going to have an organized, formal debate, presidential style, on the same day as the presidential debate. We got Rob Stats Guerrero. What are we, the host, the founder, the producer of Gold Standard Podcast, correct?
Yes, all those are accurate.
All of the above. He wears many hats. And then you guys know him as Brother Bob. I know him by a different name. We'll keep that keep him anonymous today. But Brother Bob is, can I tell him that you are what you do for a living? Is that okay?
Absolutely. And my name is Robert as well.
His name's Rob. It's Rob and Rob. We're going to go with Rob and Bob today. But Brother Bob is actually an attorney. So Stats has his hands full, but Stats knows his stuff. And he thinks the truth is on his side. So this is going to be interesting. First of all, let me welcome you guys by giving you a round of applause. I think it takes great courage to show up and do this. So I appreciate both of you. We've talked ahead of time. You guys know the format. There are 5 questions. We flipped the coin ahead of time. Brother Bob chose the Kyle Shanahan approach and deferred to Rob. So Rob's going to take the first question. And we're going to alternate from there. When you first approach a subject, you have 3 minutes, and then you have up to 3 2-minute rebuttals after that. So let's dive in because I know the people are waiting anxiously. Before we do that, Nick Nice says, good morning, Stats. Brother Bob, let's have a great debate. 49ers Throwback says, thank you for tuning in, faithful. Hope everyone is having a good Thursday. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. Please do that. And it looks like we actually have a super chat from our guy Dave Barkley. Says, my people, what is good? Let's get after it. Holy moly, we got another one. We got to get in this debate, but I can't pass this up. The coach, my friend, my good friend, the coach says, let's go. Only Ryan could pull this off. Love the show. Hopefully this is one of many to come. It started here first. You know I love you, Coach. You are the man. Thank you so much, brother. And yes, we plan on doing this a lot moving forward. Thank you so much, Coach. Love you, brother. All right, gentlemen. You guys have been prepared for 4 of the 5 questions. The 5th question is one of my own that we're going to finish with. Brother Bob chose to let Rob start first. The first question is just a general question about, is Kyle Shanahan a great head coach? We're going to go over here. Rob has 3 minutes to start. Again, is Kyle Shanahan a great head coach? Rob, as your time has started, sir.
Friends, 49ers fans, Bob, and of course, Ryan. Ryan, I'd like to start by thanking you for moderating this whole thing. Bob and I had talked about wanting to do this before I left on vacation, so I'm glad we finally got this done. Bob's a lawyer, so he knows the old expression, right? When the facts are on your side, pound the facts. When the law is on your side, pound the law. When neither is on your side, pound the table. Well, guess what? The facts are on my side in this case. Kyle Shanahan is a great coach. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good or great in this case. Just because Kyle Shanahan has had some blunders, and there have been some, does not mean that he is not a great head coach. Multiple Super Bowl appearances, multiple NFC Championship game appearances, a top 5 record in the league since 2019, building the best roster consensus-wise in the game after taking over a team that was 2-14 and had won just 5 games in their previous 2 seasons before he appeared. Yes, they haven't won a Super Bowl. But Super Bowls alone are not what decides greatness for players or for head coaches. And we have seen that throughout the history of the National Football League. The problem is There is only one thing left to criticize Kyle Shanahan for, and it's the fact that he hasn't won a Super Bowl, because everything else he has surpassed with flying colors. And if you don't see that, you are simply not looking at the reality of the situation.
Straight to the point.
Whoa.
Hold on. Let me start the clock back for you, Rob, or Bob. Well done, Rob. Brother Bob, you have the floor, sir.
Well, good morning and afternoon, everyone, especially to those in the chat and listening and watching. You know, I am very happy to be doing this. So thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. Thank you, Stats, for challenging me to come on your show. But I thought day like today, it'd be best to have a debate, a logical debate. That's the realm in which I live in, reason and logic. However, what we're debating here or discussing is Kyle Levy great or not? And I think a lot of times what gets lost by fans, and I think we're all fans here, right? All diehard fans. But what gets lost is what's really important are certain facts. And you pointed it out, Stats. And some of the stats that are good for Kyle Levy are actually, I think, smoke and mirrors. But I digress. Let me really focus on what's important. My personal belief is that Kyle Levy is a good coach, a really good coach, but he's not great. And he's not great because he's not good enough. One stat that you kind of glossed over is the fact that he is 0-3 in Super Bowls as either offensive coordinator and or head coach / offensive coordinator. That's a very big, important stat. And not only is that important, I know you don't really grade coaches, as you say, based upon whether they win the Super Bowl or not. But to me, the way he's lost the Super Bowl is spectacular fashion. Up double digits in all 3 Super Bowls. Okay. Likewise, he lost a NFC Championship game up double digits as well. See, to me, that's very important because you have to be able to close in the big games. You know, and the fact, I think personally, he hasn't closed in a big game for many reasons that you pointed out on this show with Ryan this past particular Monday. You recall some of the things you said about Kyle? You said your one criticism today is just that he hasn't won a Super Bowl. But you recall saying you really hate his game management? You remember that, Rob?
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's very important because the game management, I think, separates the cream from the crop. The great coaches versus the good coaches, right? So, and you point out the fact that you will never, your words, never get over his decision to take the ball first in overtime. And why is that, Rob? Because you knew as a fan that Mahomes was going to get the opportunity to win the game. Everybody knew that, which is why Mahomes was kind of looking like, what the hell? And why the brothers, the Kelsey brothers, were mocking it. So you got to understand, you got to pull back the onion and dissect it, not just say, oh, well, he turned the team around. Great.
2 seconds.
And he get that team over the finish line.
All right. That's your 3 minutes, gentlemen. Only I want to remind us the rules here, gentlemen. You can't go beyond the time allowed it to you, and also please don't interrupt unless no one interrupted here. But unless you are addressed, please do not interrupt, or I will have to use my power of the mute button. All right, gentlemen. All right, Rob, you have 2 minutes to respond to what Rob just said.
I would love to respond. First of all, I think it's hilarious that you try and ding Kyle Shanahan by calling him Kyle Levy, of course, referring to Marv Levy, who went to 4 straight Super Bowls, who, by the way, is in the Hall of Fame. Last I checked, they don't put good coaches in the Hall of Fame. They put great coaches in the Hall of Fame. Great coaches like Marv Levy, like Bud Grant, who also has 4 Super Bowls without a Super Bowl trophy. I've made no secret of the fact that Kyle has game management issues. I've crushed him for that. I have said that Kyle Shanahan is the reason that the 49ers don't have at least 1 Super Bowl, and I firmly believe that. But that doesn't mean he's not a great head coach. You have to look at the totality of what a coach has done. And when you look at roster building, when you look at the success that his coaches have had in the league and how many have gotten hired and how he's been able to replace those coaches, the fact that they absolutely flopped on the Trey Lance trade, and yet they still went to the NFC Championship game every single year. They gave up a first-round pick for the Trey Lance trade. All of these things go into the picture of whether or not Kyle Shanahan is a great head coach. He is not a perfect head coach. He has blown some leads in the playoffs, but you know what? So have other coaches. All great coaches have done it. Bill Belichick blew an 18-point lead in the AFC Championship game against Peyton Manning, and he had Tom Brady. Andy Reid, who in my estimation is the greatest coach in the game today, blew a huge lead with Alex Smith against the Colts in the playoffs a few years ago. Even great coaches can blow leads in the playoffs. It has happened. NFL history has shown that. Kyle has blown some. He's also overcome some, like he did against the Lions in the NFC Championship game this past season. Biggest comeback in the history of the NFC Championship, by the way. It happens to all great coaches.
All right, thank you for that, Rob. I appreciate it.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. So let's talk about Marv Levy. As obviously, when I call Kyle Levy that, I'm doing it in jest. Was Marv Levy a great coach? My answer is no. He couldn't give her the big one. See, great coaches, Rob, understand this. They find ways to win it. Why is Marv Levy and Bud Grant in the Hall of Fame? Which is, by the way, subjective, right? People vote on it. But let me ask you this. Why isn't Roger Craig in the Hall of Fame? Do you believe Roger Craig should be in the Hall of Fame stats? Yes or no? Great. Of course you do, because of what he's done. The first running back ever to receive over 1,000 yards and rush over 1,000 yards. So my point is, I believe that Marv Levy and Bud Grant are in the Hall of Fame because people felt bad for them. Look at these guys. They can get to the big game, but they can't finish it. Let's talk about other things you talk about. The fact that, and I think you said on another show, on Ryan's show this Monday, that's what's so important for a great coach is a quarterback, right? Yes or no? All right, well, let's talk about that in my last minute. Oh, by the way, let me address this. Bill Belichick lost leads. You're right, but he also won Super Bowls. You see, I'm not holding him to a perfect standard. I'm holding him to a great standard. You were able to pull it off. Ditto with Reed. But let's talk about quarterbacks really quick. That's been a huge problem with Kyle Levy, not just time management, but quarterbacks. Let's see. He started off with C.J. Beathard. Why? Third round, dumb move. He spent 4 draft picks on Trey Lance. Didn't even develop him. 3 firsts and a third. Why not develop him? Because he doesn't know how. Because he's not a great coach. Let's talk about this. He had an opportunity to have Tom freaking Brady, and he would have had a Super Bowl. But he chose not to go with Tom Brady over who? Jimmy Garoppolo. So, Rob, using your words, what goes into a great coach versus good coach, I think you're spelling out that Kyle Levy fails.
That's time. Rob, you have another 2 minutes to address Bob.
I don't know how you can say he's not developing a quarterback. He's developing a quarterback before our very eyes in Brock Purdy. I mean, I think it's clear that, yes, Brock Purdy's a very good player, but it's also Kyle Shanahan helping bring him along. It's both of them together. It's not one or the other. It's both of them. He is developing a quarterback. We are watching it right now. The first full season with Brock Purdy as a starter, he set the franchise record in passing yards. If that's not developing a quarterback, I don't know what is. And I agree with you. There are plenty of things to punish Kyle Shanahan for. Again, he's not perfect. But how many coaches can say that they have gone to 4 NFC championship games in 5 years, that they have gone to 2 Super Bowls? You know what I can say right now? The only other one is Andy Reid. Is Andy Reid a great head coach? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And Kyle is not done coaching. Let's not act like he's going to fold up shop and go away. He still has plenty of time to win a Super Bowl. He's still just 45 years old. He could coach for another quarter century. So let's not act like the book is closed on Kyle Shanahan. Again, he hasn't won a Super Bowl. We are all frustrated by that, without question. And we all hope for that. Oh, sure. And by the way you just folded your hands like an evil genius there has me very upset. But just because he hasn't won a Super Bowl doesn't mean he's not great. Randy Moss never won a Super Bowl. Is he not a great wide receiver? Terrell Owens never won a Super Bowl. Is he not a great wide receiver? Of course they are. Super Bowls are great, and we all want one. They are not the only thing that determines whether or not someone is great.
Bob, you got 2 minutes, sir.
Well, thank you, Rob. Thank you for conceding and changing your arguments. You started off today by saying only one thing you criticized Kyle Levy for, not winning the Super Bowl. But now you just said there's many blunders and many things. So I see that you're starting to see the light and the logic. But let's talk about Purdy really quick. Did Kyle really develop Purdy? Purdy came here pretty much with all the development he needed. And we heard, and you of all people, being a Niners content guy and dialed in, you probably have heard that who really wanted Purdy. And how do we know it wasn't Kyle? Because didn't Kyle, the genius that you believe he is, the great coach that he is, didn't he sit Purdy behind Lance and behind Garoppolo? Yeah, okay, I get it. Facts, you don't like these facts. But let's move on to other facts. So, you know how you talked about on this same show on Monday, just 4 days ago, certain coaches are better than Kyle Levy? You remember you said McVay is better than Kyle Levy?
Yes, I do.
Okay, tell me briefly why. I'll defer my time. Why is Sean McVay better than Kyle Levy?
Because Sean McVay's basically only had one really bad year, and it was when his team was incredibly injured. He came in and took over a bad team, and from jump made them much, much better. He's made 2 Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl. He deserves credit.
Ding, ding. I'll retake my time back. Thank you. See, that's the biggest difference. You see, he's won a Super Bowl, Rob. And that's, to me, what changes the element here. You go from really good to great by winning a Super Bowl, by being able to put it all together when other teams couldn't, by being able to make the right decisions at quarterback as McVay did, make the right decisions in the game, make the right decisions for time management, for play calling, for trying to snuff out the other team's hope went up, especially in the biggest game, the last game of the year. Thank you.
That's your time. All right. Rob, you have 2 minutes. That's your last 2 minutes to address this subject, and then Bob will finish with the last 2 minutes, and we'll move on to the next one. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, first of all, I haven't changed my argument. I said Kyle Shanahan hasn't been perfect. I said don't let perfect be the enemy of good or great. I have never hidden the fact that there are things to criticize Kyle Shanahan for. I have criticized him a ton. Second of all, it's not a binary situation. It's not, is Sean McVay great? Yes. So Kyle Shanahan is not great. They can both be great. That's the thing. Yes, a Super Bowl contributes to Sean McVay's greatness. Absolutely it does. I'm not saying Super Bowls are meaningless. They're incredibly meaningful, but they are not the only thing that defines greatness. And oh, by the way, I would have loved to see the 49ers in a Super Bowl against Joe Burrow and that Bengals team, especially when I saw them beat Joe Burrow with Jimmy friggin' Garoppolo, by the way, in Cincinnati in overtime. Kyle Shanahan has made some bad decisions in Super Bowls. No question about it. He's also lost Super Bowls to the greatest head coach and quarterback combination of this generation. That's not nothing. Put Kyle Shanahan in a Super Bowl against another coach and quarterback. I'd love to see what happens.
All right, Bob, you got 2 minutes to wrap this subject up.
Oh, I have so much more. Come on, but let me go through this. Earlier, you mentioned that, certain players don't have Super Bowl victories. And you're right. But we're not talking about players here, Rob. We're talking about coaches. And a lot of those players don't have Super Bowl rings or victories because of their coaches. You see the difference, Rob? The coaches have so much to do with the game, especially when you're the coach who's also the offensive coordinator, who's also the GM, de facto GM, who's also, as we've seen, the de facto defense coordinator. So that's the problem. He has too many hats, too many duties that he runs where he can't focus on game management issues. But I'm not done. Hey, didn't you say also that John Harbaugh, Rob, is better than Kyle Levy? Yes or no?
I don't remember. It's possible. But I'm not willing to say yes or no. I don't remember.
All right. Well, if I had the time, I would play back what you said this past Monday, because I got all these notes of all the things you said that just I find comical. Let me just run through a couple more in my last minute. You ding Salah because he's not great at coaches, because he decided to go with Zach Wilson and great at coaches. I meant quarterbacks, because he decided to go with Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Remember saying that? Yes. Or no? Okay, Kyle tried to get the same players. You just said on Grant's show yesterday that Kyle would have gone for Zach Wilson. And we also know that Kyle wanted Aaron Rodgers. He flirted with getting him. So again, he can't determine good quarterbacks to save his life, which is why he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring, I think, and which is why he's not a great coach. But let me move on to another topic here.
15 seconds, sir.
Oh, no, you know what? I'll just go ahead and defer because I got a lot to go and I don't
Yeah.
want to waste it on 13 seconds. Go ahead, Rob Stats Guerrero.
That's the end of that subject. So we're gonna move on to the next subject. Before we do that, we do have some super chats we need to get. Shout out to Matt McCown says, "Let's go, brother Bob." Leving says this debate comes down to define great. That's I thought was a great point. GTC Real says, "I'm not reading that," but he says Bob's whole name, spitting facts. And Matt McCown says, "Head coach's greatness is measured by Super Bowl. Players' greatness is measured by what they do on the field." All right, so let's move back to our next question today that you guys are prepared for. Rob came on my show. I let him know where my ranking was for Kyle Shanahan, but I never got a firm ranking from him. So I told him to prepare his ranking. I also have Brother Bob prepared with his ranking. Since Brother Bob went first last time, it is Stats' turn to go. Excuse me, he deferred. So now it is Brother Bob's time to go first. Excuse me. Brother Bob, you have 3 minutes to give us where does Kyle Shanahan rank amongst coaches and who do you have better than him?
Thank you. All right. You know, I have to be realistic. Again, by the way, everyone, I'm a huge Niners fan. I've been to one Super Bowl, paid all the money for it. I want the best for my team. And when I say that, I know Rob does too. And I know Ryan, everyone here does. Why the hell are we here? So, but here's the thing, Rob, I got to ask one question. And I'm sorry to the moderator, but I'm using my time. Rob, simple. When we're about to go into the Super Bowl, were your thoughts, yeah, we got to win this game, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. When you went into the Super Bowl, were you ever thinking, well, you know what? We might lose this game, and so what?
No.
Exactly. But then at some point after the game, you come out and said, now your opinions have changed. Well, we lost the game. It's still good. So what? Right? See, that's my point. We'll get more into this, but I wanted to make sure we put this out there. Now, let me get to my list. Because, see, as a Niner fan, when we lose the Super Bowl, as a fan who went through Walsh years, okay, a fan who partly went to Notre Dame because Big Joe went to Notre Dame, I never came out of any Super Bowl loss thinking, oh, well, it's good, it's okay. I blame Kyle Levy. Now, the remainder of my time, here are the coaches that I put up. I have Kyle Levy at 9 of the current coaches. This is based upon his overall winning percentage of just 56.7%. All right. And I have all the others above him. And so let's see. I have Reed, won a Super Bowl, multiple over Kyle Levy. I have Tomlin, been in the league so long, won a Super Bowl and winning percentage overall, 62. John Harbaugh won a Super Bowl, overall percentage, 61. Sean McVay, you agree with me, Rob? Actually, you agree with me on John Harbaugh and McVay at 61% for McVay. I have Jim Harbaugh over him as well at 68.8%. Oh, hey, they both lost Super Bowls. What's the difference? Tell me. That's a rhetorical question. There is no difference. They both lost Super Bowls. They both lost NFC Championship games. What separates the cream for the crop is winning the game. All right. Sean Payton, 61%, won a Super Bowl. And yes, I hate to say it, but even Mike McCarthy, 61%, won a Super Bowl. Okay, so here's the thing. Yeah, Mike McCarthy has to deal with a crazy owner over there, Rob, while Kyle Levy runs the entire ship. And then comes Kyle Levy. After Kyle Levy, I've got Matt LaFleur and Doug Peterson. Peterson winning a Super Bowl.
So Brother Bob has him at 9, and he listed off the guys that he would have ahead of him.
Oh, sorry. Can I get my next seconds? By the way, Rich Madrid, good to see you in here. I just noticed you said this list is fake if he doesn't. I included Mike McCarthy. All right. And hopefully one day, Rich Madrid, you'll get on here and debate me too. Sorry, moderator. Right. I apologize.
All right, Rob, you have 3 minutes to give us your breakdown and respond.
I just want to double check. Did you say you have Doug Peterson above Kyle or behind Kyle?
Below Kyle.
But Doug Peterson has a Super Bowl. I thought Super Bowls were all it took. How could you possibly have Doug Peterson behind Kyle Shanahan when Doug Peterson has a Super Bowl? That just undercut your entire argument.
Can I answer that? You asked me a question.
Yes.
All right. If you would have listened to the very beginning, I said based upon overall percentages as well, not just Super Bowl. So you got to listen, my friend. But go ahead. It's your time.
The whole argument is Kyle Shanahan can't be great until he wins a Super Bowl. Yet Doug Peterson has a Super Bowl and he's under Kyle Shanahan. Make that make sense. Look, I am not the only one that thinks it. Pro Football Focus just released a list yesterday. Top 10 returning head coaches in the league. Andy Reid is 1. Kyle Shanahan is 2. And you want to know the difference between Jim Harbaugh and Kyle Shanahan? Kyle has done everything Jim Harbaugh has done and then went to another Super Bowl on top of it. That's the difference between Jim Harbaugh and Kyle Shanahan. Okay, I agree. Sean McVay, I put him above Kyle Shanahan. I do. Andy Reid, I put him above Kyle Shanahan. I do. John Harbaugh, it's close, but if you want to give him the edge, I'd be fine. I like the way John Harbaugh operates his team. I like the way he's willing to evolve his offense. I like the way he manages games. So that's fine if you want to put him above that. After that, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game in almost a decade. Nobody gets more credit for simply not having a losing season than Mike Tomlin. And if you want to criticize a coach for quarterback decisions, please tell me who the Steelers have had since Mike Tomlin inherited a Hall of Fame quarterback with Ben Roethlisberger. Okay, please. No, thank you. Kyle Shanahan is at worst 5th, and I even think that's too low. I go Reid, McVay, Harbaugh, Shanahan. There you go. 4th on the list. And if Kyle Shanahan was suddenly fired by the 49ers, he would have a job in a second. He would have a job way faster than some of the people you have ahead of him on this list. And that is a credit to Kyle and the job that he has done.
Brother Bob.
Well, thank you. Well, you're right. Kyle did go to another Super Bowl over Jim Harbaugh. Did he win it? No, because he's not great. You see, that's the point. So let me move on, though. You mentioned Tomlin. Tomlin has not had a losing season in the NFL. Now, you want to give all sorts of, praise to Kyle Levy, even though he hasn't won a Super Bowl, and holding him to a different, lower standard than Tomlin. Let me ask you this. Has Kyle Levy had a losing season in the NFL? Yes or no?
Yes.
Has Kyle Levy had multiple losing seasons in the NFL? Yes or no?
Yes.
So I like to think that that's a big difference between Tomlin and Kyle Levy. By the way, let's talk about apples and oranges here. Tomlinson, does he act as the GM over at Pittsburgh? No. Tomlinson, does he act like the offensive coordinator as well over at Pittsburgh? No. Does Tomlin even have a background in offense? No. So you can't hold the things. We're talking about the so-called professed genius that is Kyle Levy. Is he really a genius? Now, anyway, I know we're talking about lists, but no, I don't put Peterson above him because Peterson hasn't been able to sustain and keep his overall percentage. It's pretty low, but you know what? It's still over 500 and he's still in the conversation at the top 10. So I've never said that the end all be all is winning the Super Bowl. I didn't say that, but that's a huge criteria in my opinion. And let me also say this. What's also very important is the fact of how you lose those games. See, these coaches that we've talked about, they didn't lose it in spectacular fashion like Kyle Levy did, looking all depressed, looking at his sheet. What should I call? What call am I going to make now that's going to make me lose this game yet again and again and again? Case
That's your
closed.
time, sir. That's your time. Rob, you have 2 minutes.
Mike Tomlin doesn't lose games in spectacular fashion. His past 3 playoff games, he's been outscored 121-75. Okay. He does lose games in spectacular fashion. The comparison there is crazy. Give Kyle Shanahan a Hall of Fame quarterback and let's see how he does. Okay. You want to criticize Kyle Shanahan for losing seasons. The first 2, he takes over a team that is horrible. One of the worst rosters we've ever seen. Yeah, they struggled his first 2 years. One of those, by the way, his quarterback tore his ACL and was out for the season. Since then, he's been one of the best head coaches in the league. And I know you're sitting there saying, well, Kyle Shanahan could have had a Hall of Fame quarterback. Yeah, he could have. He could have. That's a fair criticism. That's a fair criticism. He could have had Tom Brady. He chose not to. He didn't think a quarterback that old would be able to be that good. He didn't bet on the unicorn of unicorns in Tom Brady. You want to criticize him for that? Fine. Kyle Shanahan has been, hey, don't interrupt my time, sir.
Hey, well, you stopped talking your nonsense, so I thought I would jump in.
I have
wait,
54 seconds left. Stop wasting my time. Moderator, please do your job. Now,
No interrupting.
putting Doug Peterson below Kyle Shanahan undercuts your entire argument because you've said that what's keeping Kyle Shanahan from being great is winning the Super Bowl. But Doug Peterson has a Super Bowl and he is under Kyle Shanahan on your own list. I didn't do that. That was your list. So at least be consistent with your arguments, sir.
Can I, Rob, what is the place where you have, what number is Kyle ranked? Because I don't.
4.
4. Okay, 4. Bob 9. Bob, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Maybe arithmetic is not one of your, and I don't want to be personal here, but he missed out on three potential Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Kyle Levy chose, as I said before, Garoppolo over Brady, who was begging to come to his home team, take a discount. But the genius that is he was like, no. All right, then what else? He didn't even really scout Patrick Mahomes. Is it not ironic that he lost 2 Super Bowls to this, what you call unicorn? Because he couldn't decipher what is a good quarterback. Because it's all about him. It's all about his ego. He's stuck on stupid. I said it. He's an obstinate mofo. It's too stubborn. It's about his scheme and not about the players. He has to understand that. So that's 2. Oh, didn't he try to go after Matt Stafford too? But lost out. Why is that? He was too busy getting drunk on the beach someplace? I don't know, allegedly. My point is, he has shown time and time again that he cannot make the ultimate decisions. That really is a reason why I don't understand why people call him a genius. He's anything but a genius. And why would teams love to hire him? Why is he in the NFL anyway? It's not like he was a great player in college, Texas receiver. No. It's not that he really developed this offense. It was really his father's offense. So it's the point that he's a Nepo baby. Let's just be honest, right? Kyle Levy is in the NFL because his dad was in the NFL and had a great career in the NFL. By the way, he's the exact opposite of his dad. His real dad to me is Mark Levy because his dad actually won a Super Bowl as offensive coordinator with our Niners. Okay. His dad won 2 Super Bowl as head coach with the Denver Broncos, whereas Kyle's the exact opposite. Lost the Super Bowl as offensive coordinator and lost 2 as head coach and offensive coordinator.
That's your time, sir. Rob, you got 2 minutes, buddy.
This is where your argument, I think, falls apart. You continue to call him Kyle Levy. Are you aware that Marv Levy didn't win a Super Bowl because his kicker missed a 47-yard field goal? If the kicker makes the kick, Marv Levy is a Super Bowl champion, and by your definition, great. Just like if Nick Bosa tackles Patrick Mahomes on 4th down in the Super Bowl and you change none of the decisions that Kyle Shanahan made, you change none of the decisions to kick field goals, you change none of the offensive performance, you change none of that. Nick Bosa tackles Patrick Mahomes, Kyle Shanahan has a Super Bowl, and in your eyes is thus great. That doesn't make logical sense to me because you're changing nothing about Kyle's performance, and yet somehow you're elevating it to greatness, even though nothing has changed. If it's great, if Nick Bosa makes that tackle, it's great, period. That's why I don't like the argument there from you. To me, that doesn't make sense. People watching and listening are very, very smart. I'm sure they can make that determination on their own. And I hope that you do. I hope that you see the light. And why is Kyle Shanahan a genius? I don't know. Maybe because half the league is running his offense. Maybe because half the league is running to hire anyone that's ever touched Kyle Shanahan because they see the greatness. That is why. Again, just because you're not perfect doesn't mean you're not great. And that's the impression that I want to leave people with. Hopefully they see it. And by the way, it's not his dad's system. Every coach starts out under a system, right? Andy Reid runs the West Coast offense. No one says Andy Reid is running somebody else's system because you start learning under someone and then you evolve the system as years goes by and it becomes your own system. And that's what Kyle Shanahan currently runs. So if you're going to ding Kyle by saying he's running his daddy's system, are you dinging Andy Reid because he's running Bill Walsh's system? That doesn't make sense to me.
Bob, you got just your final 2 minutes on this subject.
All right. So let's be honest. You talk about me, but you're so inconsistent right now. Let's talk about what you just last said. Everyone's running Kyle Levy's system. That means he's great. But then you just said, but every coach takes a system and tinkers with it and changes. So it's their system. Which one is it? But let's just go back a little bit more. Has anyone taken Kyle Levy's offense as is and won a Super Bowl with it? Answer, no. Kyle Levy didn't win a Super Bowl with it. He had multiple chances. Now, McVay did, but McVay did what to win it? He wasn't about running the ball like crazy that year. It was Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp. The thing that Kyle Levy just will not do, he will not exploit the other team's weaknesses because he has his game plan, his scheme, and by hook or crook, that's what's going to win him. Now, you talk about if Bosa did this, if so-and-so did that, if this did that, what it should have, could have. We're talking about facts. When it came down to who won the game and why, the point is Kyle Levy has not ever done it. And the reason why is because he makes many mistakes throughout the course. Now, you want to blame Wilkes for not, as did Bosa, for not teaching the team to watch out for running quarterbacks, but that's been a problem under Kyle Levy since he's been here under this regime. So, and since Kyle Levy listens in and to all the teams and what they do, the different the defensive room, the defensive back room, the defensive line, and special teams, why the hell is he not telling them, hey, guys, watch out for mobile quarterbacks. We've got this problem. You're the head coach. You're also the GM. Why don't you draft guys that can stop this? Okay, so look, Rob, I, believe it or not, like Kyle Levy. And the reason why I like him, because he came from Mike Shanahan. And I thought he would be a carryover of Mike Shanahan back in 1994 when he was OC, but he's anything but.
That's your time. That's your time. Rob, this is your last 2 minutes on the subject, please.
So to be clear, you just said Kyle Shanahan doesn't design an offense that takes advantage of teams' weaknesses. I think I would beg to differ with you. The whole scheme is designed to take advantage of teams' weaknesses. You know whose offense scored more touchdowns in the league last year than any other offense? I'll give you one guess. That's right. It was Kyle Shanahan. And in fact, since Kyle Shanahan has been the head coach of the 49ers, only 2 offensives have scored more touchdowns and only 5 offenses have gained more yards. And that's including 2017 and 2018 when the team was awful, and in 2020 when they were absolutely decimated by injuries, unlike we've never seen in the NFL, and he still has numbers that are that good. So to say that Kyle Shanahan's scheme doesn't take advantage of other teams' weaknesses is crazy talk to me. The league is running the scheme. That is the scheme that is most prevalent around the league last year because teams and owners have seen it and they see that it works. It's the same scheme, by the way, that won Aaron Rodgers multiple MVPs in Green Bay. I mean, what are we talking about here? Now we're trying to say that Kyle Shanahan's not a great offensive head coach? I thought you liked this guy.
All right.
I'll take this 47
seconds. Do you want to concede your time to Bob, or do you want to wrap it up and move to the next subject?
Defer it to me. Come on, defer it to me.
Sure, go ahead.
Don't be scared. Thank you. All right. So I don't know where you're coming with this, but great. He scored a lot of TDs. Great. That's great. Do you think Ayuk was crying and the other players were dejected after the Super Bowl because they lost the Super Bowl but scored a lot of TDs that year? No. No one cares about that useless stat. What's important is winning the game. Now, I talk about his scheme. He can't exploit weaknesses. When teams throughout the game adjust and adapt, you have to do so too. Bill Walsh talked about this. I read his books. You have to then go on to the next thing to exploit the next weakness. Kyle Levy cannot do that. That's why he hasn't won a Super Bowl.
All right, gentlemen. Good job on those 2 subjects. Let's address a couple questions real quick. Tyler says, when's your next call-in show, Ryan? And Rob, when's your next call-in show for me? I don't know. Usually on Saturdays, not this Saturday. I'm going to watch Kevin Costner in his new Western. Rob, when is your next call-in show? He wants to know.
Good question. I don't know. Maybe I need to do another one soon, Tyler.
Yeah. Chris Maldonado says, sorry, I almost butchered that, but I think I got it right. It says, this is pretty dope. Much love and respect to all making this happen. Rob is super focused. Real talk. He's not breaking at all. All right. Real quick, too, after the show, please, in the comments, I want you guys to use your power of the vote. And in the comments, vote who won this debate. We got 3 more subjects to address. You guys both have brought up Super Bowls quite a bit in this conversation. So this question is, well, let me get to the right screen. There he is. The question is, can and will Kyle Shanahan ever win a Super Bowl and make the Hall of Fame? I believe, Rob, it is your turn to go first.
there's only one obvious. Of course, he can win a Super Bowl. What would be preventing him from winning a Super Bowl? Like every coach can win a Super Bowl. That's just logic. Will he win a Super Bowl? I believe he will. Look, winning a Super Bowl is very difficult, right? We all know this. It's a one-game situation. Anything can happen. Your middle linebacker's Achilles can pop while he's running onto the field. Weird stuff happens in one-game situations. The key is putting yourself in a position to be able to win a Super Bowl time and time and time again. Joe Montana, as Bob loves to famously bring up, once hit Lawrence Billups of the Bengals in the hands with a ball before he throws the game-winning touchdown to John Taylor. If Lawrence Billups catches the ball, guess what? The 49ers don't win. In a one-game situation, sometimes that happens. Fortunately for us and for Joe Montana, Billups did drop the ball, and the Niners went on to win the game. But the point is, sometimes circumstance bites you in the ass. And it's been a combination of circumstance and a combination of Kyle's bad decisions that so far have not led to a Super Bowl championship. But he's going to keep putting himself in a position to win a Super Bowl championship. Okay, you're interfering in my time.
Please respect his time. Please respect his time.
There's nothing stopping Kyle Shanahan from winning the Super Bowl. And if he continues to put himself in a position, he increases his chances of doing it. And there's nothing to indicate, by the way, that he's not going to be in a position to win a Super Bowl for years to come. The 49ers have a 24-year-old quarterback who appears to be ascending. They still have many young players on this team that are good and are going to be good and are under contract for a while. Hopefully they continue to add during the draft and possibly in free agency as well. There's nothing to indicate that the 49ers championship window is getting any smaller. Yes, they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. Guess what? Teams have paid quarterbacks and won championships. Kansas City being an example of that. By the way, Eli Manning was making a ton of money when he won his championships with the New York Giants. It is not as rare as people think. Is it harder? Sure. Is it impossible? Absolutely not. So the idea that simply because Kyle Shanahan doesn't have a Super Bowl now means he'll never win a Super Bowl is crazy. Tony Dungy was in his 10th year when he won a Super Bowl. And guess what he got when he went to the Colts? A Hall of Fame quarterback. Funny how those two things seem to coincide, isn't it? Just because someone hasn't done something in the past doesn't mean they can't do it in the future. Before he was Magic Johnson, he was Tragic Johnson. Before Jordan won 6 championships, he couldn't beat the Pistons, right? We have seen throughout the history of sports that just because you don't win a Super Bowl at first, or a championship, I should say, doesn't mean you can't win one in the future.
Brother Bob, you have 3 minutes.
You know what's so funny? In that whole answer, you never heard him say he will win one, but that's okay. Look, first of all, let me address the chat for a second. Rich Madrid, we tried to do a debate on here, the same topic, and you said you couldn't come on because you have to work during this time. Yet you're in the chat chatting. I find that interesting. Look, if you don't want to debate me because you can't debate me, tells me you don't know ball. Now let's move on.
Hold on. Let me pause your time and just on. Rich did say he will do it if we do a show later in the day. He will do it, and I will do that for you, Rich. So we'll make this happen in the future. But go ahead. I'll unfreeze your time. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. Sorry, Rich. I had to give it back to you. I appreciate you apologizing though on Twitter. Now let's move on. Back to you, Robbie. So you dealing a lot of woulda, shoulda, coulda. Oh man, if this would have happened, if that would have happened, if that would have happened, if that would have happened, whoop. We deal with what did happen, and we deal with why did it happen. Those are called facts. Okay. And by the way, very cute for you to reach out to the chat and the listeners and say, hopefully you guys are smart enough to see it. See, this is what I'm talking about, homers, okay? Let's not be a homer. Let's just be realistic, okay? Will he win a Super Bowl? My answer is not with the Niners. And here's why. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm dead wrong because I spent a lot of money on this team. But he has to learn to adapt and adjust. He has to learn to do that on the fly. And the way for him to do that, I believe, is for him to give up some control. Now, how did Andy Reid get to that point? Because he actually ended up getting fired or not renewed. So he realized he had to change things around. And what he had to do was he ended up getting Mahomes, and it's well documented. He went and learned Mahomes' college offense to incorporate some of those things. Do you agree with that, right, Rob? He did incorporate some things from that offense. Yes or no?
I don't know if he incorporated things.
Oh, well, do your research. You can Google it. You got a minute. Now, the next thing that's important is you keep talking about Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Yes, bring it home, my friend. This is a huge blemish on your love. Sorry, I won't say your love, but on your boy genius Kyle Levy. He cannot find a Hall of Fame quarterback unless one drops into his lap, right? Maybe Brock is that guy. God, I hope he is. I love Brock's story. But, you know, he reminds me of Tim Rattay. Also wore number 13. Was a favorite of mine. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the point. He cannot find a Hall of Fame quarterback. He cannot scout one. He cannot trade for one. He cannot even sign a free agent that was literally trying to just bear hug him. And I think the biggest reason why he didn't want Brady, not because Garoppolo was better, but because he knew he couldn't run or control Brady. And that, my friend, is the problem. Oh, you can have my last 2 seconds.
Rob, you have 2 minutes.
The idea that Andy Reid somehow had an epiphany after leaving Philadelphia and going to Kansas City is the biggest misconception right now in the NFL. Andy Reid is the exact same coach he was in Philadelphia as he is in Kansas City. And how do we know this? What did he get criticized for in Philadelphia? Oh, he doesn't run the ball enough when he has a lead, right? He blows leads because he doesn't run the ball enough. He blew a 28-point lead when he was the coach of the Chiefs with Alex Smith against Andrew Luck and the Colts. 28 points. You want to know why Andy Reid is really good now and has Super Bowls? Because he has the greatest quarterback of his generation. He hasn't changed. He is the exact same coach. But when you get Patrick Mahomes, you look really damn good. And oh, by the way, before we give the Chiefs all this credit for taking Patrick Mahomes, the only reason that they were able to take Patrick Mahomes is because they were desperately trying to trade up to take Paxton Lynch in 2016 and couldn't get it done. So again, let's chill on the Andy Reid is absolutely great. And he's so much different now because he changed. No, just like Tony Dungy didn't change when he went from Tampa Bay to Indianapolis. He got Peyton Manning, arguably the top 2 quarterback of his generation when he was in the game. So let's not act like all of a sudden Kyle would be a different head coach because he changes teams, or other coaches are become different when they change teams. They don't. They are the same. The ones that succeed are the ones that get good quarterbacks. And we don't know. Maybe the 49ers have a Hall of Fame quarterback right now on the team. So if you're going to ding Kyle for saying, well, he could have had a Hall of Fame quarterback and he's never had a Hall of Fame quarterback, he might have one right now. And if he does have one, it's going to be because he developed him and he put him in positions to succeed, like so far Kyle has done with Brock Purdy.
Brother Bob, 2 minutes.
You know, Stats, you have a propensity to put words in people's mouth. I never said that Reid was the greatest since sliced bread. To me, that's Bill Walsh, who Reid was a tutor under. But tell me this, Rob. Did Reid, yes or no, run the same offense with Alex Smith that he ran with Mahomes?
Yes.
No, I think they were a little different. He let Mahomes, Rob, and it's been said. I mean, Reid actually said this. He lets Mahomes does what Mahomes want to do. He does not put any type of govern on Mahomes. He does not do what Kyle Levy does. Hey, I'm going to call these 2 plays. If the defense show you this, kill to the other play. He doesn't do that. He lets Mahomes run that offense. Why? Because Reid put his ego below that of his Hall of Fame quarterback and below that of his team. We saw that in the Super Bowl. Was it Kelsey getting all crazy on him? And then what did Reid say after? Hey, it's my star player. That would never happen with Kyle Levy. Look at Kyle Levy. Look what he's doing right now with BA. His best receiver. He put in the doghouse. The guy that he drafted in the first round. The only one he's drafted in the first round that's worked out so far. I thought he knows receivers since he played the position, blah, 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 blah. But my point, let's go back to this, Rob. Seriously, if you think that he's going to win a Super Bowl, time will tell. And I actually think he will. Once he's on another team, he has too much power, he has too much control, and he's an obstinate mofo. Something has to be a wake-up call to him that he has to change something. Or do you believe what he's doing is working? Keep doing it because it's great. He keeps losing to Andy Reid. Do you think that that's great? You think he should make any changes? Yes or no?
Well, since you asked me a question, I'm going to answer it. Now you're putting words in my mouth. I never said it's okay that they lost the Super Bowls. I never said I was happy that they lost the Super Bowls. I was gutted like we all were.
You have 2
I was
minutes, Rob.
asking
Go
you, Rob.
ahead.
I didn't say
You have
you
2
did.
minutes, Rob. Go ahead.
I never said it was okay that he lost the Super Bowl, but obviously what he's doing is good because they keep getting in position to go to and play in the Super Bowl. That doesn't happen by accident. You don't win a church raffle to end up in the NFC Championship game and end up in the Super Bowl. And you can sit here and say, well, he hasn't won one. Go ask the other teams in the league if they would like to be where the 49ers are. Every single one other than the Chiefs would say yes, because it's hard. And you keep talking about you remember the Walsh era, and that's great. You know what eras I remember? I remember the Dennis Erickson era. I remember the Jim Tomsula era and the Chip Kelly era and all the stiff coaches that the 49ers have had. And you want to get rid of a coach because he's going to NFC Championship games and Super Bowls? Why? Because John Gruden had success when he came in and won a Super Bowl with Tony Dungy's team. How did Norv Turner do when he took over from Marty Schottenheimer's 14-2 Chargers team? How did that work out? The history of the NFL is littered with coaches who were brought in to take over good teams and who flopped. Yet we remember one with John Gruden who won a Super Bowl playing against his old team who didn't change any of their offense so that his Hall of Fame defense knew exactly what was coming. Yet that's the guy you want to point to as why we should get rid of Kyle Shanahan, when overwhelmingly, statistically, the history of the NFL says when you get rid of a great head coach and bring in somebody, you don't win a Super Bowl. You have to stick with the guy who's putting you in a position to be playing for and winning Super Bowls year after year after year. And Kyle Shanahan, other than Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan is the only head coach that can say, when my quarterback is healthy enough to play every game, we go to the Super Bowl. He's done it 3 years in a row. Did it with Matt Ryan, Jimmy,
That's your time.
Rob.
Brother Bob, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Oh, yeah, that's really good. History tells us that you can't replace a good coach and win the Super Bowl after that. Didn't the Niners do that? Wait, I'm confused. Don't you know the Niners history? Didn't the Niners literally do that? Didn't Seifert win one right after Walsh? I'm confused here, Rob. Help me out. You're the stats guy. Aren't you the stats guy? Anyway, I
They
digress.
didn't fire Walsh.
I didn't say firewall. She left. But we all know, and it's been documented, why he left and why they already had Seifert as his replacement. Walsh has been on record as saying he wanted someone else. But look, let's not hash that out because you didn't even answer the question. But let's answer another question you didn't answer. Should Kyle Levy change anything to get him over the hump? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So that tells me then that there's room for improvement. And you just admitted he has to get over that hump, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So we do agree. Now, do you think what he's doing right now is good enough then?
Good enough for what?
To be great, or to win a Super Bowl?
Yes.
Okay. So then why should he change anything if what he's doing now is good enough to win a Super Bowl?
Because you can get better. You can always improve. I like coaches that improve. You don't. That's just how we're different.
I know. I do love coaches that improve. Let me take my time back. The thing that you just said, though, in your last 2 minutes is, and I can lead this witness swan song, is because he's a hostile witness. That's the California Code of Civil Procedure. Now, let me move on, though. All right. Hey, Rob, you mentioned you like coaches that change things to get better. That's my point. What he's doing is not good enough. That's why he has to change things. And do you remember, Rob, on this same show, you said you believe, I quote, that Kyle Levy has PTSD from the Atlanta Super Bowl that he lost as an offensive coordinator? Yes or no?
That's a false quote. I never refer to Kyle Shanahan as Kyle Levy, counselor.
All right. Did you say that he has PTSD from the Atlanta Super Bowl loss? Yes or no?
Yes, I think he does.
All right.
All right. So that's why he can't change. He's got to go over that PTSD.
We're going to do this, gentlemen, because we have 2 more subjects. This can be the last rebuttal on this subject, and we're going to move on. Rob, you have 2 minutes.
Kyle Shanahan can certainly change things to get better. Absolutely. Would I love to see it? Yes. I've talked about his fourth down decisions are too conservative. They are. It drives me crazy. When he did change it, by the way, in the Super Bowl late in the fourth quarter, throwing a pass to George Kittle to keep the chains going on fourth down, they converted. They scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So, yes, of course he can change things. When you're playing in the games against the best competition, your game management situations become more important. If you're not playing against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, maybe it doesn't even come into play. So can Kyle Shanahan win a Super Bowl doing what he's doing right now? Yes. Can he also change and improve to get better, to increase their chances of winning a Super Bowl? Yes. Two things can be true at the same time. And I think that is a very difficult thing for a lot of people to accept and acknowledge. Just like Kyle Shanahan doesn't have a Super Bowl and Kyle Shanahan is a great head coach. Both of those things can be true. It's very hard for people to accept that two things can be true, but that is the reality of the world that we live in. And so until people acknowledge that, I think they're going to have a hard time dealing with a very frustrating, even though it's been very good, a very frustrating era of 49ers football.
Great.
You yield your time,
are you
right?
done with-
You yield your time. I'll
Yes,
take
Here's what
it.
we're gonna do. Bob, I'm going to give you 2 full minutes for the remaining subjects. We're going to have our opening.
Wait,
3
wait.
minutes and
He
then
yielded
2
his
minutes.
time. Let me get my 30 seconds on that.
Hold on. I'm the moderator here, my
All
friend.
right, all right, all right, all
For
right.
the sake of time, you have 2 minutes to respond to this subject. Moving forward, we'll do 3 minutes and then 2-minute rebuttals for the sake of time. But Bob, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
What's this subject that we're talking about? The same one?
Same one. You're
Okay.
wrapping it up. Mhm.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so Rob, let's go back to the PTSD comment. Because a lot of times people don't want to put that Super Bowl on Kyle Levy because he was an offensive coordinator. It seems like you understand, though, he shared some blame for that loss, right?
I don't put the Super Bowl on him. No. But
I
he
said share some blame. Can you please listen to what I'm saying? Does he share some blame for that? If not, why does he have PTSD?
because
So
he's
yes
still
or no?
by the experience.
Does he share some blame? Yes or no?
Some, sure.
Okay, thank you. So here's the problem. How does one get over PTSD? You said it in this same show. He is no longer aggressive. He now leads by fear. You remember using those words?
I do.
All right.
Okay.
So if he leads by fear, if fear controls him, he has to get over that. And I don't think he's going to get over that doing the same thing that he's been doing. Because guess what, Rob? You're right. Two things can be right at the same time. Kyle Levy is a good head coach, but he's not a great head coach because of all the reasons you pointed out. PTSD. He now lets fear run him. He can't find a Hall of Fame quarterback to save his life. We're hoping that Brock landed on his lap. I mean, I'm sorry, Kyle, if you're listening to this, Kyle Levy, how do you go waste 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick on a quarterback that you don't even try to develop? All right, that is just, in my world, we call that malpractice. We call it gross malpractice because that's something that a jury would easily see. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? But you get a pass because, well, you've been to multiple Super Bowls and lose. Well, you've been to this and you lose. So it's okay. You've got the most TDs, but you lose. And then people make so many excuses for him. The woulda, shoulda, coulda. Rob, please, I love you, guy, but don't make any more excuses for him.
That's your time, gentlemen. You guys are doing fantastic. I want to let everybody know that for whatever reason, StreamYard is not starring your super chats. So I am going to go back and grab a few that I missed, and I'm trying to monitor them the best I can. Stephen Draper says, Bob, don't forget about Drunk Kyle at SI Presser. GTC says, I will say Marv lost 1 Super Bowl on his kicker. Dave Barclay said, kidding me? BB is cooking, flat out getting it. And then Manny disagrees, says BB is getting cooked. Matt McCown says PFF also had Oliver ranked higher than Lenore last year. If you use PFF, you lose credit. Dave Barclay says Rob, ? Half the league, but who's won it with 0? Clutch Gene Sports says this is pure comedy. No, this is very serious, Marco. Chris Maldonado says, hey, Rob, can you get Bob permanently as gold standard podcast host during the week? Homie is smooth. Good point on Brady. Brother Bob, this is so dope. And then the last one here, Eric Dane. Ryan, if this debate, then you should do a poll after so we can have an election to see who won. I'm going to be doing one on Twitter, and then I want you to leave it in the comments as well here. All right, gentlemen, I did speed it up again just because of sake of time. Actually, the coach dropped one more in. I guess the real question is what other active coach is considered great without a Super Bowl win? If it's just Kyle, then that should tell you everything. Coach dropping the elbow from the top rope right here. Gentlemen, we're going to speed it up a little bit, 3 minutes, just like normal to start off, and then only 2 rebuttals at 2 minutes for the last 2. This next one is based off of a tweet that Rob Stats put out. I believe it is Bob's turn to go first on this one, correct? Am I correct? Yes. It is Bob's
Uh,
first. Yeah. This is the fourth question. It's Bob's turn to go first. So Rob put out this tweet. I'm going to read it to you guys. Really sick and tired of the 49ers haven't won a Super Bowl, so nothing they've done is good or makes me happy. Fans, if that's your deal, okay, but you're going to be miserable for 99% of your fandom. We all want Super Bowl titles, but everything else counts too and shouldn't be taken for granted. So, Bob, you get 3 minutes to respond to that tweet and that mentality as a fan. I hear a little feedback. I don't know if one of you guys has the YouTube on, but if you can turn it off.
okay. Can everyone hear me? All right. So, this particular tweet, Rob, and I get it. And I don't mean this in a bad way. We're all very emotional when it comes to our teams. That's why we're fans, right? I mean, it is what it is. That's why I have this jersey autographed and another 4 autographed up here. That's why we go to games. That's why we're doing what we're doing now. But Rob, to put words or feelings into people's thoughts, they're going to have a horrible fandom. My fandom is not horrible. My fandom is great. You know why it's great? It's because I've been there to the mountaintop. I've been to the promised land. I stole that from someone very important. But I've seen the Super Bowls. I've seen it. I've seen the victories. I've shook hands with Bill Walsh, got his autograph. And I look forward to those days too. Now, I know you yourself had PTSD from the Erickson days, from the Tom Sula days, but there was bad coaches even before then. And what are you going to do? Do you want Kyle Levy to be the coach for the rest of the remainder of your life, regardless if he wins the Super Bowl or not, regardless if he reaches the ultimate pinnacle? That's the question. I don't. And I'll be a fan regardless and enjoy the season regardless. But I can't be like Jed York and say, oh, the season was a success, even if we lost the NFC Championship game to the Lions. That for him, for his pockets, yes, it's a success. But not for me, this fan. Now, that doesn't mean it's horrible, Rob. See, you got to understand, in law, we have the scales. It's a balance. You don't go too extreme on the one hand and the other extreme on the other hand, okay? You got to be balanced. So don't think that just because we lose a Super Bowl, that half of the fans are horrible or feeling horrible. No, we can just be objective and say this is not good or not good enough. By the way, let's use your own words. I think the beginning of this show, I asked you, and that's why I'm happy we're here. Will you go into the Super Bowl thinking, yeah, we better win this game as a fan? You said yes. Remember that? Yes or no?
Yes.
And you earlier said you don't go into that game thinking, oh, well, if we lose, it's okay. Remember you said that?
Yes.
All right. So, but when the team loses, now for some odd reason, you back down and say you rationalize to yourself, I think, that it's okay, that the season was still good because, hey, we did make it to certain levels so far. But see, that's the difference. Your mentality changed, Rob. And that's okay. I don't fault you for it. Your mentality is just different than mine. I never, after that game, any Super Bowl loss, do I ever think or feel, well, now I wanted to really win that game, but it's okay. Second place is great for me, even without that parade.
That's your time. Rob, you have 3 minutes to discuss your tweet and your stance on that.
Yeah, my tweet is simply this. There are a lot of fans that feel the way Bob feels, that we didn't win a Super Bowl, so nothing else matters. It doesn't matter that the offense has been incredible. It doesn't matter that we have the league's best roster year after year after year. It doesn't matter that we've gone to 4 out of the last 5 NFC Championship games and 2 Super Bowls. None of that matters because they didn't win the Super Bowl. And I can't get on board with that thinking. No one is happy that they lost the Super Bowl. No one says it's okay that they didn't win a Super Bowl, but you can look back and say, hey, even though I'm really mad and sad that they didn't win a Super Bowl, I'm also happy that they were in the Super Bowl. Again, 2 things can be true. And this doesn't just happen. I've been telling people this is a golden era of 49er football. This doesn't just happen. How do we know? Because we've seen it. We've seen this team be a laughingstock for a decade. From 2000 till Jim Harbaugh arrived, the 49ers were a running joke. And so, yes, I'm okay. I'm mature enough as a fan to be able to say, hey, it sucks that they haven't won the Super Bowl, but isn't it awesome that we're playing for Super Bowls every single year? And isn't it awesome that we have all these awesome guys on the team that are really good and really fun to watch? And by the way, really good people. The 49ers have not had a lot of off the field issues under Kyle Shanahan. So I think you can separate those two things and say, it's great to be where the 49ers are right now. Again, go ask other teams of other fan bases. Would you like to play in conference championship games basically every year? Would you like to go to a couple Super Bowls? Ask a Browns fan, okay? Ask a Lions fan. Ask those teams. See how fast they would trade places. Obviously, we'd all trade places with the Chiefs if we could. And I'd love to see the 49ers get to that level. But to sit there and say, nothing matters. Nothing counts. Who cares about the touchdowns? Who cares about the players? He's not getting it done. Coulda, woulda, shoulda is just a terrible way to go about your fandom, because you're going to be miserable most of the time because championships are so rare. And I've seen a championship. I was 9 years old in 1994 when the 49ers won it 30 years ago. I know what it's like. And of course we want to get back there. But this nothing matters, nothing counts, nothing is good, we can't celebrate anything is crazy to me. And I never said that the season was a success, that when the 49ers didn't win the Super Bowl just because they got to the NFC Championship game. I never said that. So please don't put those words in my mouth, because clearly the 49ers were in Super Bowl or bust. They didn't achieve their goal. Then that sucks. But it was still awesome to play for a Super Bowl. Those two things can be true at the same time. And especially as we look back at this era, when the 49ers are not winning consistently, whether they win a Super Bowl or not, we're going to say, damn, that was a lot better than where we currently are.
Bob, you have 2 minutes.
Is this my last rebuttal on this?
I think so.
Uh-oh. Did we lose a moderator?
I think we might have.
Okay, good. Well, my 2 minutes has just been lengthened and extended.
No, I'm starting to timer on
the Rob, and I want everyone in the chat to understand this. Okay, you start the 2 minutes. Rob, let's make this really clear. Does the league give out Lombardis for losing Super Bowls?
Nope.
Yes or no? Do the league give out Lombardis for having the most TDs? Yes or no?
No.
Do the league give out Lombardis for making it to certain levels? Yes or no?
No.
All right. So there's a reason for that. Number two, Rob, I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm merely asking you questions, and I got a good one for you. But Rob, let's ask these same teams, would you like to be in the Super Bowl? Let's ask them this most important question. Would you like to get to the Super Bowl and lose it? All right. So because that's the type of argument that you leave out conveniently. It's very important. Now, let's talk about something else. You said you're mature enough to understand that you don't always win. Once again, I love the sensitivity, but are you mature enough not to make excuses for failures? Or is your maturity just that you accept and love failures? Hey, you know what I've always learned? That the loser of the Super Bowl is the first loser. No one ever remembers, this team was great and they lost. By the way, my last 25 seconds, Rob, what does it say about Kyle Levy to have the most all pros on his team versus the Chiefs and have like the better team on paper, but just couldn't win it? That says a lot. Maybe you don't. But I have one other thing. You remember what you said the goal is on this show on Monday? You said the goal is for teams to make it into the playoffs and have a chance to win a Super Bowl, not win.
That's your time. That's your time. I'm back, right? Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Rob, you have 2 minutes, sir. And then Bob, you'll have one more 2 minute period, and then we'll end with the final question after that.
I just feel like Bob is continually trying to muddy the waters. Again, no one is saying that Kyle Shanahan hasn't made mistakes in Super Bowls. He has. I am on record again as saying that he is the reason they don't have 2 Super Bowls, as well as being the reason that they have gotten to 2 Super Bowls. Both of those things are true. I'm not trying to say Kyle Shanahan is perfect. Like I said at the beginning of this debate, don't let perfect be the enemy of great. You can be great and not have Super Bowl trophies and not be perfect. And by the way, again, Kyle Shanahan is not done coaching. Again, he's still just 45 years old. Tony Dungy didn't win a Super Bowl till his 10th year in the league. These things sometimes take time. But yeah, I want the guy that's going to continually put the 49ers in position to get that done, because I believe with enough bites at the apple, you will eventually get a Super Bowl title. And that's all you can ask for from your head coach. I mean, are we really sitting here debating this? Kyle Shanahan took over
Yes.
a terrible team and
Yes.
3 years later made the Super Bowl. Would anybody say that's not great? Nobody would say that. Yet all of a sudden we're throwing this into question. Then he got back to another Super Bowl. No one, that's not great. That's not great. Again, ask those teams, ask a Browns fan if they would lose a Super Bowl or if they'd rather win one game a year. You know what they'll tell you? They'll tell you they'd rather lose a Super Bowl because they're tired of watching their team get stomped and acting like being terrible and losing the Super Bowl are the same thing is not a mature fandom. It's not. I'm sorry. Clearly there are differences and we can tell the differences. We are smart enough to see the differences and let's acknowledge them without excusing the mistakes that were made. Because as I said, there were mistakes that were made.
Is this me who's frozen? I'm not sure.
We hear you, Ryan.
Yeah, we got you.
All right, cool.
Yeah, we hear you.
Brother Bob, actually, I misspoke earlier. You have 2 minutes, and then Rob gets to finish this one because you started this one. Okay, so go ahead.
No worries. So, Rob, again, and I appreciate you pointing out facts. The reason why the Niners don't have Super Bowl rings this regime is because of Kyle Levy. Thank you for saying that. And my point is merely this. That's what denigrates him. That's what's keeping him from being great. Because it's not just mistakes. No one was perfect. By the way, Rob, you keep talking about perfection. Walsh wasn't perfect, but he was perfect in the Super Bowls. Walsh didn't win every NFC championship game. Walsh in Montana either. Neither did Steve Young. But what makes them great is that they were able to put it together and not choke. Kyle Levy chokes. You said it yourself. He has PTSD. And he can't get over that fear now. You said it. Your words. Don't walk back from those words. Don't waffle from those words. Until he gets over that PTSD and learns to change and adapt, that's going to be his hubris, his Achilles. All right, now, Rob, I love that you speak for the Cleveland Browns fans and the Jacksonville. Well, Jacksonville actually won one. It's some other fans. No, not Jacksonville. I'm sorry. Peterson won it with Philly. I love you speak for the Jacksonville fans, the Panthers fans, all these fans, and tell them, hey, you would love losing the Super Bowl, wouldn't you? Because you've never been to one. But do you really think that that's the goal? I mean, that was my last question, Rob. On this same show, you literally said the goal is to get in the playoffs and have a chance to win the Super Bowl. Is that really the goal of the NFL, these teams? Is that the goal, more importantly, of the San Francisco 49ers to just get in the playoffs and have a chance to win a Super Bowl? Is that's the standard to you? Because if it is, I'm going to say this mature fan really is pretty sad that that's the way you feel. But maybe you've changed, like you changed a little bit on Kyle Levy.
That's your time. All right, Rob, you have 2 minutes to wrap up this subject, and then we'll hit my surprise subject for both of you. Go ahead.
I'm not waffling on anything. I'm not waffling. I have criticized Kyle Shanahan's Super Bowl mistakes, but to sit there and say Bill Walsh was perfect in the Super Bowl when you acknowledge if Lawrence Billups catches the ball that Joe Montana throws right to him, he's not.
But he didn't, Rob.
Don't interrupt.
Stop.
Please don't interrupt.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda. It didn't happen, Rob.
Just because Bill Walsh, because Lawrence Billups doesn't drop that ball, Bill Walsh has a perfect record in Super Bowls. But that doesn't change anything about Bill Walsh's performance, right? It's sometimes what happens on the field and circumstance affects things. And it's okay to acknowledge that and put your sign down because you're interfering with my time.
You're interrupted, Bob. We will ask
I'm not
you to
interrupting.
please not use props and not interrupt further. Let Rob have his time. Go ahead.
I've never interrupted your time. Let it be stated. You have to look at the circumstances of action. Doesn't excuse it. And by the way, let's also give Kyle Shanahan credit. He's not just making the playoffs, okay? He's 8-4 in the playoffs. He's making deep playoff runs. This isn't Marvin Lewis getting to the playoffs every year and then losing and not winning. So you can sit here and talk about, the standard. The standard is playing for a Super Bowl every year. That's what Kyle Shanahan has basically established since 2019. That is his standard. And as long as they're getting to that standard, I don't know why you would want to replace that. Again, circumstances happen, right? We saw the Boston Celtics dominate in large part, the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals, except for that one game when Dallas kicked the tar out of them. Sometimes in a one-game scenario, stuff happens. The best way to secure a championship is to keep putting yourself in position to get bites at that apple. And that's what the 49ers have done under Kyle Shanahan because he is a great head coach.
Rob, if you'd like, I can give you 5 extra seconds because Bob did take about 5 seconds from me.
Well, I'm going to be magnanimous and move this thing along and let Bob off the hook because also we've been at this for an hour and 15 minutes here.
Right. And we got one.
Wait, sorry. By the way, I have a hard cutoff at 10:30. I have actually work today.
So let's keep it pushing here.
But,
I got one subject.
But we
left
can keep
for you
going.
guys.
We can do this again though. But go ahead.
I got one more for you real quick, and we got to read these off. Matt McCown says generational divide is a real thing. New fans love participation trophies. I grew up with the saying second place is the first one to lose. Dave Barkley says I'm with Matt. Matt says, Rob, do they train and grind all year long to be the best roster and score the most touchdowns, or do they do all that to win a Super Bowl? Guarantee you the players don't care about anything but the Super Bowl. Fish and Chip says it's all about profit. New Eddie had passion, Jed none. Steve Draper said, I'd rather Dre was healthy over playing in a Super Bowl loss. Jimmy Kwan says, the problem isn't San Francisco hasn't won. It's Kyle not taking ownership. A true leader takes ownership, even if it wasn't them, such as Brock. He's a leader. And Fish and Chip says, Kyle left that last responsibility on others. I'm not going to, we're not going to respond to the Super Chats today just because we got a lot to get to. So let me go ahead and ask you guys the surprise final question. Brother Bob, you obviously not super thrilled with Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. So my question, my final question for both of you guys is, do you think Kyle Shanahan should be fired? If not, what does he need to do in your eyes to deserve being fired? And then the same question will be for you, Rob, after he's done. It's your turn to go first. Stats. So you have 3 minutes.
God, there's no universe where Kyle Shanahan deserves to be fired. None. Again, 4 out of the last 5 conference championship games they have gotten to. They've gotten to 2 Super Bowls in Kyle Shanahan's tenure. They may have gotten to another one if all of his quarterbacks didn't get hurt against the Philadelphia Eagles. In what universe are you firing that guy? What? He was 12-5 last year, 13-4 the year before, 10-7. They were 6-10 in 2020, and then 13-3 in 2019. You're firing that guy again. Who do you think you're bringing in that's going to be better? I would love to hear it. I would love to hear the guy is going to be better than that. Firing Kyle Shanahan? Are we crazy? Because he lost to the greatest head coach and quarterback of their generation twice in the Super Bowl? We're going to fire that guy? People are acting like, well, the standard is the Super Bowl because the 49ers were the team of the 80s. What have they done since then? They have 1 Super Bowl since then. The standard, acting like the Super Bowl is the only thing that can be a good thing, is crazy to me. And I got all these old head fans acting like the 49ers are playing for every Super Bowl every year. And that's just not the case. It's not the case. This is the best era of 49ers football since the 90s. And it is not even close. So what are we talking about firing Kyle Shanahan? He is the reason that all of that has happened for the 49ers. All of it. It all started with Kyle Shanahan. You want to fire that guy because Jed York has such a great track record of hiring head coaches? Jed York fired Jim Harbaugh and hired Jim Tom Sula. Jed York hired Chip Kelly. Jed York hired Mike Shanahan in the locker room. What? That's the guy you want deciding the future of the 49ers? You really? That's what you think? No, thank you. There is no universe where Kyle Shanahan should even be talked about getting fired. It is absurd.
Stats. Can I interrupt? I just want to clarify something too. I don't know if Brother Bob said he wants to fire Kyle yet, so we'll have to figure that out. What I want to know is, and I'm pausing in your time, but I want to know is, obviously you don't think Kyle needs to be fired at this point, but what would he have to do in your eyes to be fired? If you could answer that with the last 50 seconds.
Yeah, the team would have to get worse. If they're making conference championship games and Super Bowls, I'm not firing that guy. No, I'm not firing that guy. Now, if the team gets worse and they start playing better, then yeah, I would consider making a change. But no, until that happens, I'm not letting Kyle Shanahan go anywhere.
All right. Sounds like you're done with your time. So, Bob, you have 3 minutes. Do you think Kyle Shanahan should be fired? And if not, what does he have to do in your eyes to justify being fired?
So, first of all, I've never said fire Kyle Levy. I said earlier, Rob, I love you, guy, but you have a propensity to move the goalposts. You have a propensity to put words in people's mouth. It's called a scarecrow argument. Now, I don't want to fire Kyle Levy right now. What I do want to do is relieve him of some of his duties. You know, I don't know if you remember this, but the last Niner regime that won a Super Bowl, the 80s you talk about, plenty of times they relieve people of their duties that still remain on the team.
They won a Super Bowl in 1994.
I know that. They haven't won a Super Bowl since 94, since Kyle Levy's dad was the offensive coordinator. Thank you. I pointed that out. My point, though, is, Rob, is that things have to be done. Things have to be changed. So I think he should lose some of his power over personnel and or give up some of his calling duties. Have someone assist him with it more, or have someone in game management. You know, Rob, you mentioned you don't like some of his game management decisions. Well, why not have someone to assist him with that? That's what I would do. Number two, in 2 years, when this core is over, I would give him a short lease to try to rebuild again, to see if he could do this again since he's so great. But it would be a short lease. He would not be given carte blanche. He would not be given multiple years to do this. Because at some point, you remember Eddie B? Sure you do. He also went to Notre Dame, my alma mater. His family built the Bartolo Hall. And by the way, Kathy policies, you remember him, Carmen Policy? His daughter went there too. Very nice lady, met her. My point though, Rob, is no one wanted Eddie to hire Bill Walsh at first. People had PTSD back then too, Rob, just like Kyle Levy has, and apparently you do too, from Erickson to Tom Sula. But you can't be comfortable with less than best. Remember that. If you get to that big dance, you get to that big game, you got to win it. You cannot make excuses repeatedly. It's one thing to lose it once, but to lose it a total of 3 times being involved. And by the way, Rob, when I put this up, woulda, shoulda, coulda excuses, I'm not saying anything. If that distracts you, that's just another excuse. Don't make an excuse. Rob, let's just focus right here. He has to win a Super Bowl to be considered great. And you can't give him, what do you want to give him, a whole lifetime contract? As long as he keeps making it there, but not grasping it, as long as he keeps kissing it away with double-digit leads, you're okay with that? You don't want to win it? You like second place. I do not like second place. I want to get first place. If you make it to the Super Bowl, win the damn thing. No more excuses.
All right. So since we have a time restraint here, Rob, I want to just get you guys to agree. This will be the last 2 minutes for each of you. Is that okay?
So we're like closing arguments?
Closing arguments right now. You got 2 minutes, and then Bob will finish, and I'll read the super chats. We'll get everyone out of here on time. Great job so far. You guys agree on that?
Sure.
I have to go at 10:30.
Right.
Yes.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much again. And Ryan, thanks for moderating. But I think it's clear who won this debate. Bob is sitting here saying you got to win a Super Bowl to be great. And in Bob's own listing, he had a Super Bowl winning head coach below Kyle Shanahan. So I don't know how you can sit there and argue that Kyle needs a Super Bowl to be great when you have Doug Peterson below Kyle Shanahan on your own head coaching list. That 2 things doesn't jive with me. Second, you keep saying I'm okay with second place. No one is happy that they lost the Super Bowl. Am I happy that they played in a Super Bowl? Yeah, that doesn't make me a bad 49er fan. It doesn't make me somebody that's not embracing the history of this team. You can't win a Super Bowl unless you get to a Super Bowl. So yeah, I'm glad the team was in the Super Bowl. Again, I've said it all show. No one thinks Kyle Shanahan is perfect. Certainly, I've criticized him as much as anybody. But to say that he is not a great head coach and that there's no way he can win a Super Bowl is just simply not living in reality. Okay. Whether you look at the coaches around the league, whether you look at the offenses around the league, that have come from Kyle Shanahan. Whether you look at Kyle Shanahan's ability to build a roster, whether you look at Kyle Shanahan's ability to continually replace a coaching staff, all of that is at the top of the league and points to the greatness of Kyle Shanahan. Denying that simply because they haven't beaten Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in a Super Bowl is ignoring 98% of the job that Kyle Shanahan has done since he's become head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't think that's something 49er fans should do. And hopefully, I don't think they will do it after this debate is over. Yes, he needs to win a Super Bowl. We all think that. Yes, he is also great. And anyone that doesn't think so is just not looking at the full picture of what Kyle Shanahan has brought to the 49ers.
Excellent
Well-
job today, Rob. Bob, you got the last 2 minutes here.
Well, thank you once again to the chat. Those on YouTube, those on Stats channel as well, and those listening on Twitter, now known as X. I hope everyone has seen the real truth here and listened to the actual arguments. If not, I implore you to please go back and listen to it if you have time, because this is what I mean. Kyle Levy is a really good coach. He's just not good enough to be considered great. And it's not just because I level coaches on if you won a Super Bowl or not, but it's how, in his particular case, he's lost Super Bowls. Not knowing the overtime new rule is just blasphemous. You need to know that. He gave so many excuses why he didn't know it. First, I didn't want to rest my defense. Then, yes, I wanted to rest my defense. Then, I didn't want to give Mahomes the ball back. All this would have happened. Rob himself admitted to this in this show. Rob said he will never get over the management and the overtime decision. Rob also said, using his own words, he has a lot to change. Kyle Levy does, but Kyle Levy won't make the changes. We all know that he's stubborn. I've never said he has to be perfect. That's you moving the goalpost. What I said is you got to win a Super Bowl. You're good enough to get there, but you're not good enough to win it. You're not great. We keep talking about Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And I think that's been proven. He can't find one to save his life. Even when one knocks on his door. Ding, ding, ding. Hey, buddy, my name is Tom Brady. I just want to win one Super Bowl with my favorite team, my home team. Can you bring me? I'll take a discount. Screw the cap. Yeah, no, I like Jimmy Garoppolo. So there's a lot of reasons, Rob. Go through it. You even said Sean McVay is better than Kyle Levy, who won a Super Bowl by changing Kyle Levy's offense. So I rest my case. Case closed.
That is your time, gentlemen. Great job, both of you. Please, nobody else send super chats because I got to get everyone out of here on time. I appreciate both of these gentlemen. Make sure you vote afterwards. I'll put a poll on Twitter as well as on my YouTube, as well as in these comments. If you guys would be so kind to do that, I'd appreciate it. Let's tackle these super chats before we wrap it up. It says fish and chips. Kyle Shanahan let the last Super Bowl responsibility on others. Lame. He also said he should have been traded. He sucks. He can build the team and then jump in their way during the biggest games. Kyle should be gone now, but Brock played well. Trade Kyle. Anyone can win with this roster. Matt McCown says if Kyle loses the locker room, he will have to go. Sal says this was fun. Clutch says this was great. Y'all both made great points. Dave said Bob is right. Clearly, he can't stand on anything. So clearly, brother Bob is stating facts, not emotion. Love this show. Love you guys, but clear winner, according to Dave Barkley. Make sure you guys are liked and subscribed to this channel as well as Bob's channel, Gold Standard Podcast. I will be back at some point. You guys, again, huge shout out to both of you guys for doing this. This was really fun.
Before we close it, let me just say thank you.
Go ahead.
I just say thank you to Rob. I appreciate it, Rob. I appreciate you being the fan that you are and actually challenging me to come on and debate you. That takes a lot. You know, I'm still waiting for Rich from Bridge to do that. Thanks to all of the people in the chats on both channels. That's right. You know, hey, Rich, you want to call me on Twitter? I'm here, baby, all day, every day. I just got a job that really I do have to go to at 10:30 and don't make excuses, but still be in chats. Anyway, so thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Rob, we'll have to do this again. And thank you, of course, to the moderator. Thank you, Ryan O.G. Hensley.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Rob, you got anything to say before we get out of here?
No, thanks, Bob. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support on all the shows that you're in. I see you in the chat. Thank you to everybody. And let's do it again soon.
All right. Thanks, you guys. I will be back. Make sure you like and subscribe to both channels, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for watching the Ryan G. Hensley Show. Your support is greatly appreciated. Please visit RyanGHensley.com to learn more about me and all of my businesses. Whether it's real estate, credit repair, solar, whatever it is, you can find out more about me on that website. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you know when